How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining me on Out of the Boat Throws. So we got a little bit of a change of scenery here. I'm going to be moving pretty soon to another place. So the house is a little bit shambled at the moment, so this seemed like the best spot to do it. So we actually recently finished 1 Corinthians, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of go back and maybe start with Old Testament and go ahead and go through that so we can get a little bit more context of some of the things that Jesus was saying, what he was referring to when he quoted certain scripture out of what would have been the Torah at the time, and the different books of the Jewish faith that we've adopted to really reveal who Jesus was and what it was God was referring to when he was speaking at these times. So we're going to go ahead and just go right through Genesis and start there. Seems like the most fitting to start in the first chapter of the book. So we'll go ahead and go to Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expansion between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse, and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Verse 11. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit, with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed and according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be light in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light that governed the day, and the lesser light that governed the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living creature and moving thing with which the water teems, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful, and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. So in the first chapter of Genesis here, we see God creating the earth and creating the living creatures that are on the earth. We also see that he creates man in the image of God. And there's also something very interesting that's seen here. That when the days were separated, they actually start. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. So we can see here that the evening and the morning were actually what separated the days. And then later on here we see that the plants that bear seed are given as food to all the living creatures, to man as well as to the animals. And so these are for us to partake in and to receive sustenance from. And we also understand that the way it's written, it seems like as if God was having a conversation with multiple people when he was doing this discussion. So let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So we can see here that God was actually had other people that he was participating with and having conversation with, the way that it's written here. And we also understand from later chapters that it says in the New Testament, in the beginning the Word was with God. And so we're understanding Jesus as that Word of God, because the Word became flesh. And something very interesting I want everyone to take note of is God actually gave us dominion over the entire earth itself. He says here that to let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So I want you guys to kind of take understanding of that, is that we do have dominion over the earth and the creatures that live amongst it. So we actually shouldn't be afraid of them, and we shouldn't be worried about situations where we may run into certain animals. But at the same time, we should respect these animals. They are creations of God. And we shouldn't just be mindlessly taking advantage of what God had given us. So with that, we should be very careful when we choose to hunt or to eat animals, that we're not hunting just for sport, and we're not overindulging as to take in too much and actually disrespect the bounty that God had given us. And in that as well, to rule over the earth and the animals the way God rules over all of us. So at the same time, he is a stern God, and he expects us to obey the commands that he's given us. As well, at the same time, he does respect us, and he doesn't just wipe us off the earth every time we make a mistake. And he doesn't just mindlessly go about how he handles us. So with the same thing, we shouldn't just be abusing the animals that we have And we shouldn't just be destroying the earth as we live upon it. We should respect it. So we should do our best to do the things within our power to take care of the earth and take care of the animals that we rule over. And in that, we can receive sustenance from certain things, whatever seems reasonable to you. But be very careful as not to believe just because we have dominion over these animals that we should just be wiping them out as we feel like, because they need the ability to repopulate, otherwise we will wipe them off the earth. And the same thing with the way we rule over the earth is not to completely remove all the plants out of the forest and to pollute the air and the ocean that we have, and to respect these things. Because if we do rule with abuse or neglect, we'll actually destroy the thing that God had given us, and in that no longer be able to receive anything from it. If we end up polluting the oceans to the point where they're no longer clean and they're actually toxic to us, the fish and the animals within it are going to be toxic to us. As well as we understand from certain endangered animals and things like the buffalo and other animals that were over hunted. And like a lot of the animals back then too were hunted for sport for the most part, and they were almost wiped out completely. Now there are certain things that we just personally can't control, like certain animals that may not be fit for the environment anymore, and as their environment changes, maybe they have to adapt or they have to die off in a certain situation. Those things we have to understand that there's very little we can do if the environment is no longer sustainable for these animals. It's going to be very difficult just for them to stay alive on their own. So as we rule over the earth, we should take understanding that we should be very careful as to not destroy the environments and the habitats that these other animals live in, and to do as little as we can, or as much as we can, to have as little effect on our surroundings and our environment. As we build homes and shelters, as we do search for food, and as we try to build lands for farming, we should be very careful as to leave enough to where the environment isn't devastated. And at the same time too, if we do choose to take certain animals, only take what you need for that time and what you can store and what you believe you can eat without it spoiling. That way we're not just killing things and letting it go to waste. And with that, we're respecting our authority given to us and not just corrupting the power that's been allowed to dwell within us by God. And at the same time too, we're allowing the environment to provide for us and allowing what God had given us to build our homes and to give us the sustenance that we need, so that we can continue for further generations and not just overindulge, take everything, so that our children and their children don't have to struggle trying to figure out how to deal with the mess we had made. So if we have the ability to reuse things, recycle things, treat the animals with respect, treat the creatures in the sea with respect, and only take what we believe we need, and not to allow ourselves to take too much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close, and next week we'll be going into chapter 2 of Genesis. I hope you guys have a good one, and if you guys do have any comments or questions, anything you'd like to add, go ahead and leave in the comments section below. And if you guys want to see future videos, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys, and have a good one.